Hi everyone, my name's Andy and I've recently got back into cycling, having spent the last 3 years doing very little of it. Now a couple of weeks ago I went out for a ride to try and get a better idea of what my current baseline fitness is, and I did this by cycling up Frodsham Hill and comparing my Strava segment effort against previous results from a few years ago. But as I promised in my most recent YouTube video, I'm now going to put myself through an FTP test on Zwift to get a more measurable metric of what my fitness is looking like at this stage, and I can see how that then improves over the next few months and years. To do this, I'm going to need to dust off my Wahoo Kickr trainer and my old bike, get them out of the garage, they've been used even longer ago than 3 years, and get them set up so I can connect through to Zwift. So the garage is just full of your typical stuff, gardening stuff. Got a lot of my eldest son's old toys that we're saving for my younger son's old enough. Golf clubs that I do not use. And then bikes. We've got my Bianchi, which I've been using on the videos you might have seen already. And we've got my son's current bike and his old balance bike, which again my youngest son will use when he's old enough. Got my wife's sort of town bike, which I tried to convince her to get a hybrid. We bought 2 bikes so we could take the kids out on them. I bought this giant, which is behind at the back there, and a seat. You can get the little arm. She was convinced she wanted one of these. I tried to convince her we should get her a hybrid. She didn't listen and now she regrets it. And then I've also got this Cannondale Synapse, which is my old bike. This is one I've had since 2014. It took me from Geneva to Milan. It took me everywhere for 10 years after that. Until I bought the Bianchi to early Christmas present to myself December last year. The Synapse has seen better days, but we're going to get that one out now, give it a good clean up, and that's what we're going to use on the trainer. And this can have pride of place. So here it is, the Wahoo Kickr. Been gathering dust in there for a little while. So if you're new to cycling, you're not quite sure what FTP is, FTP stands for Functional Threshold Power, and it is the maximum amount of power that you can sustain for a 1 hour long effort. So there's a few different ways that you can measure your FTP. What I'm going to do today is an FTP Ramp Test. Essentially what's going to happen is I'll sit on the bike for a certain amount of time, and every 1 minute the power will increase by 20 watts up to a level where I can no longer carry on. I'll have to physically stop. And then Zwift will then work out from that effort what my FTP will be. So FTP in and of itself isn't a complete picture of a rider's fitness, but what you might more commonly see is watts per kilo. So your FTP divided by your body weight, and that gives you a more comparable measure of how fit you are. Obviously a lighter rider is going to be able to get up the hills quicker than a heavier rider, unless that heavier rider can put out a hell of a lot more watts than the lighter rider. So I'm on the heavier end of the spectrum, so I'm above 90 kilos, so I'm hoping that my FTP is going to stand up to that and I'm going to have a slightly higher FTP. Now I've never really done an FTP test before properly, so I don't really know what I'm going to get today. I sat and warmed up the other day and did a zone 2 ride with my FTP set at 260 watts, and I managed to keep my heart rate down in zone 2 for that effort, so I'm probably not a million miles off with that, and that would put me in and around the 3 watts per kilo category. I do go to an indoor cycling class at the gym periodically, and they do a 3-minute test there to estimate your FTP. I've got reservations to how accurate that is. I feel like I can game a 3-minute test by just going hell for leather for those 3 minutes. The best result I've got on that test is 310 watts. If I get 310 watts today, I will be astounded. So I've got all the equipment ready, dusted off the trainer, dusted off the old bike, gave it a test ride the other day. So I'm just about to get it set up now, ready for tomorrow morning, and then I'm going to give it a go and let's see how I can do in my first attempt at an FTP ramp test. Good morning everyone. The family is still in bed, but I'm up early to do my FTP test. So like I said, I'm going to be doing the ramp test today on Zwift. The way it works, you can see on the left hand side that my trainer will take care of the resistance for me, but every minute the power that I need to put through the bike will increase by 20 watts, and my aim this morning is to ride for as long as I possibly can. So what will happen at the end is Zwift will work out at what point I failed, at what point I needed to stop, but it will then use that performance to estimate what power I can sustain for a full hour of riding, and that will be my FTP estimate then. I'm not really sure what to expect. I'm hoping to keep going to the high 300s at least, but it's easy to say now when I'm still on the 5-minute warm-up. I've never done one of these before, so I'm blissfully ignorant to the pain that I'm about to endure, I think. Okay, we're into the test proper. Starts off nice and gentle at 100 watts. I'm going to try and keep an eye on my cadence as well through this. Going to try and keep it at around 90. Just spotted that it was down at about 85. You can keep it at 90 and make it a little bit more sustainable. The Wahoo Kickr sets the power for you, so even if I was to reduce my RPM, it would then increase the resistance to match to make sure that I'm hitting the power that I need to. So if I drop my legs to 70 RPM, they'd then be putting through a lot of resistance. It's going to take a lot more out of me, so if I can keep my legs at 90, it'll make it easier to ride, especially when I get to the higher resistance. My heart rate's a little bit higher than I'd normally expect for 160 watts. I wonder if I'm a bit scared. There we go, 200 watts now. Okay, 240 watts. That was probably the first time I could actually feel a bit of a change when the power increased this time. My heart rate's just hit 80% as well. .300 watts. Cadence looks good. 170 heart rate. I can well imagine that this is where it starts to unravel pretty quickly. Feel my legs. There it is. 220 watts. And my MyZone's telling me I'm in the red. I've got another couple of minutes in here at least. This is pain. I've not got much more. Hold on now. No. 276. $276. I'm happy with that. So like I said, weighing in at just over 90 kilos puts me there at 3 watts per kilo, which definitely take that. What a way to start the day, eh? 14 minutes of pain. So it's been a few days now since I did the FTP test. I've had a bit of time to reflect on the 276 watts results. Pretty pleased with that. The thought of having to sustain that for an hour on the bike is stuff of nightmares. I think next, do a bit more outdoor riding. I potentially need to put myself through a 20-minute test, see if I can get a similar-ish result. Don't ask me about all the science behind it, but I have heard people talk about the FTP Ramp Test being a bit less reliable than the other tests that you can do. So potentially try and do a 20-minute test. And now that I've got this result of 276, I could probably reverse engineer that to give me some idea of how I could pace that. But thank you for watching today. If you want to see a bit more content of a returning cyclist, then please subscribe.